Hello and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. My name is Bob Power, and on behalf of OTC Markets, we're very pleased you joined us for our next live presentation from Cassiar Gold Corporation. Please note, you can submit questions in the box to the left of the slides. You can also view a company's availability for one-on-one meetings through the Schedule Meetings tab found on the conference platform. At this point, I'm very pleased to welcome Marco Rock, President and CEO of Cassiar Gold Corporation, which trades on the OTCQX Best Market under the symbol CGLCF and on the TSXV under the symbol GLDC. Welcome, Marco.
Thanks, Bob. It's a pleasure to be here, and thanks everyone for tuning in and listening to the very exciting story that Cassiar Gold is. So, if that's okay, maybe I can just get started with the presentation. The presentation title is Gold Fever, Revitalizing the Historical Cassiar Gold District in BC. I'll just, before I start, just want to bring your attention to the disclaimer and forward-looking statements that I will be making today. So really from the 30,000-foot view, Cassiar Gold, we are a Canadian gold explorer. We have two assets in British Columbia in Western Canada. Cassiar Gold is led by a team of serially successful mining executives, from geologists to engineers to operators to marketing and capital markets professionals with nearly 250 years of collective experience that have discovered, built, and operated mines around the world, and are looking to do the same again here at Cassiar Gold. Other than the team, there's something that really sets us apart with our flagship project, and that's our infrastructure. We're located in a safe jurisdiction with a lot of infrastructure already in place. Because we are a past producing district, we control a 590 square kilometer land package that has seen a lot of production in the past, and that's the reason why we already have two Mines Act permits already in place. We have a provincial highway bisecting our property, dozens of kilometers of paved roads, 160 kilometers of property access roads, a fully owned and permitted 300-ton per day mill, 25 kilometers of underground development, water and power access, as well as a permanent 48 people camp. The replacement value of this infrastructure alone is worth multiple times our market cap. Obviously, this infrastructure is only as valuable as the resource size and resource potential. And we do have a lot of potential in our 590 square kilometer land package. We have a foundational resource at Taurus, a 1.4 million ounce resource at 1.14 grams per ton inferred. This resource is from early 2022. We've been drilling and expanding quite successfully over the last couple of seasons around basically expanding mineralization laterally and at depth as well, very, very successfully. But our goal really is to not only increase the size of Taurus, but actually find multiple deposits similar to Taurus. And we have several targets that look exactly like Taurus. And in fact, we're drilling them this year. And we would love to turn those targets into satellite deposits as big, if not bigger, than Taurus. But actually, the real dream here is that the whole system would be connected. We'll have to drill to see that, to find that out. But other than this bulk tonnage potential that we have a lot, we also have these fast producing high grade veins at Cassiar South, where most of the historical production has come from 10 to 20 grams per ton. And most of these vein systems are open along strike and down dip, with a lot of room for blind, parallel, and stacked vein discovery. So a lot of exploration potential in our project. Other than that, we're also committed to social and environmental responsible development. We have a strong relationship with our First Nation partners, the Cascadena First Nation, and we abide by the highest environmental standards. And last but not least, we're very, very attractively valued. Our market cap is just over 30 million Canadian dollars. We have just under 6 million in the bank, and we're just completing a very large exploration program, over 16,000 meters in our flagship project, for which most of the results are still coming out. So do stay tuned for that. So maybe going into the next slide here with the team. Just for those who don't know, I'm Portuguese. I'm Portuguese, born and raised. I started my career in banking, did capital markets for several years, and been an investor and an entrepreneur in the mining space for many years. And that's how I met Steve Ledwin while he was the president and CEO of IM Gold. He's our chairman and largest individual shareholder, so very relevant experience there. We also have on our left there Steve Robertson. He's a geo. He was in charge of permitting and development most recently at the Red Chris mine, which is majority owned by Newcrest, one of the most significant recent mine developments in British Columbia, just 200 kilometers south from us on Highway 37 from our flagship project. We also have people like James Maxwell on our board. He's the former exploration director for Sabina that got acquired for 1.2 billion by B2. That's where Vern Sheen, our advisor to the board, also comes from. We also have people like the great Doug Kerwin that led the team at Ivanhoe that discovered Oyu Tolgoi in Mongolia, and also brought in David Rees, which is the most sought after structural geologist in orogenic gold system, which is the type of systems that we have. So other than a great team, we also have great assets. So moving to the slide there, I think. Oh, here we go. So we have two, as I mentioned, two assets. Our flagship, the Cassiar Gold Project, is located in northern BC, roughly 100 kilometers south of the Yukon British Columbia border, and 200 kilometers north of the Red Chris mine, which is one of the most significant mine developments in BC. So we're 100% focused on our flagship project just north of the Golden Triangle place, but we also have a secondary project called Sheep Creek, located in Thunder, British Columbia, close to the border with the US. It's the third largest past producing orogenic gold district in BC, with production until 1951 being almost 750,000 ounces at nearly 15 grams per ton. So it's a very prospective asset, which we do expect to generate shareholder value in the future, either through drilling it ourselves and proving it up, or alternatively through M&A. Just in terms of the capital structure, we have just under 97 million shares outstanding at a Canadian share price of 34 cents. That's just over 32 million Canadian dollars market cap. A very attractive valuation. Our cash is just slightly under 6 million, and we do have analyst coverage from Red Cloud. We also did a bought deal financing in May, led by Canaccord, Cormark, Red Cloud, and PI. And we have analysts coming to site as well. So we do expect more analyst coverage coming in the near future. We also have a very healthy insider ownership. Insider ownership stands at just over 11%, and institutional support. We've been able to grow that since I joined in 2020 from basically zero to nearly 30% of our share registry. So that's also really good to see. In terms of social and environmental work, we abide by the highest environmental standards. We do wildlife monitoring, water monitoring. We also have an excellent relationship with our community. We try to provide training opportunities, employment opportunities, as well as contracting opportunities to the local economy and local community. And as most players in the space, we also provide annual sustainability reports and ESG reports as well. So maybe zooming into our flagship property, just from the 30,000-foot view, it's 100% owned, 59,000 hectares, 590 square kilometers of opportunity, a contiguous project, roughly 27 kilometers by 25 kilometers. If you look at the map there on the left, you can see in red a line coming from the south. That's Provincial Highway 37. That bisects our property in half. So there's no clear geological boundary, but for now and for the most part, that separates Cassiar North from Cassiar South, just due to the sheer size of the land holding. So for now and for the most part, Cassiar North is comprised of these near surface, bulk tonnage, open pitable targets, like the Taurus deposit, where we have that 1.4 million ounce resource there. And then Cassiar South, for now and for the most part, is comprised of these fast producing underground high grade veins, where most of the historical underground high grade vein production has come from, and for which there's a lot of unmined high-grade mineralization still there, and which we also have been expanding along strike and down dip, with a lot of room for new parallel and stacked blind vein discoveries as well. Just in terms of the infrastructure, I mentioned this is extremely valuable and it's worth probably multiple times our market cap. We have Highway 37 coming from the south and bisecting our property. You can see on the top bottom right. I mean, just the view of the quality of the infrastructure. You can also see a picture there of our camp, as well as we have power lines. You can also see the topography is very, very gentle. The bottom of the valley there on the picture sits roughly at 800 meters above sea level, and the plateau at roughly 1,300 meters above sea level, and with much better topography and much easier conditions to work with than what you see typically in the Golden Triangle just south of us. We're very, very lucky. In terms of some images of further infrastructure, you can see we have 17 portals. You can see one portal here in the middle on the bottom. We also have a fully owned and permitted 300 ton per day mill on sites, which is extremely valuable. This specifically well designed to process the high grade material. So historically, 315,000 ounces have come out of this mill. We have power lines. You can see on the left there, on the top left, connecting to the mill to most of our portals. And we also have several tailings facilities, core shack, a 1.2 kilometer long airstrip nearby our Taurus deposit, as well as a paved road that literally goes into the Taurus deposit. So we can actually drive from anywhere in North America to the top of those 1.4 million ounces without ever leaving a paved road. Other than the infrastructure, which you can also see here, the mill is actually in relatively good shape, fully owned and permitted, and with recoveries there on average 93% historically. This mill, just so you know, was last operated in 2007 and then partially refurbished in 2010. But other than mill, we also have something that is extremely, extremely valuable, and these are the mine permits. So if you look at the map on the right, you can see in yellow the Taurus deposit, and in and around it, you can see the Taurus Mines Act permits in green, covering in and around the Taurus deposit. And in the south, in orange, you can see the Table Mountain Cassiar South mine permits covering those historical high-grade vein portals and that were historical producing, as well as all the infrastructure that surrounds and supports it. And if you can look at the scale, it's a 2 kilometer scale, so it's a very, very large area for mine permits, and really puts us in a unique position as a company going forward, because it puts us years and years ahead in permitting timelines, just as the same as the infrastructure in itself allow us to significantly reduce mine development costs compared to a project that basically is in the middle of nowhere. So we're very, very lucky on that front. So maybe zooming to the next slide, this is a schematic of the heart of our property. So this is a long section looking west. So Cassiar North is to the right, so north to the right, Cassiar South is to the left. And you can see along that trend that goes south-north, there's at least a 15-kilometer belt, which is full of gold showings, past production. We have both tonnage targets and deposits, as well as high-grade veins and targets. So it's a very, very rich property for which we only assess a very, very small percentage of the land package. We've been going from the known to the unknown, stepping out from known mineral occurrences and continue to expand mineralization in the last few years. And we've been doing that at a very, very high success rate. So moving on to the next slide into the Taurus deposit. So this is where we have the 1.4 million ounces at 1.14 grams per ton inferred using a cutoff grade of 0.5. You can see on the map on the left, roughly the footprint of the deposit is 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer. And if you look at the cross section on the right, you can see that this is a pit constrained resource where 90% of the ounces occur within 150 meters from surface. In addition to that, you can also see that there's some historical production. 35,000 ounces were produced in the 80s, and that comes from that shaded area on the map on the left. So the previous resource had 150,000 ounces in that area that were excluded from the latest resource update in early 2022, because we didn't have the exact blocks that were mined historically, and now we do, and we'll be able to include that in the next resource update, in addition to all the expansion drilling that we've been we've been doing. Also, for your reference, the recoveries on the historical production from this Taurus bulk tonnage material were roughly 84%, which gives us a lot of comfort going into the future as well. One thing that is also worth noting is that in this pit-constrained resource, you'll see some gaps in mineralization, both on the cross-section, the gaps will be in whites, or in the map view there, in the middle of the deposit, you'll see some gray areas. And these areas, these gaps, it doesn't mean that these areas are not mineralized. In many of these areas, it just means there's no drilling. And in fact, in the last couple of seasons, we've drilled into these gaps very, very successfully. In fact, from all the drill holes released since this resource update in early 2022, which were 78 drill holes, only one hole within intercept mineralization above cutoff grade in significant width. So we've been doing an excellent job at really expanding mineralization and with a really good hit ratio. Just to characterize a little bit of the rocks that we have in and around Taurus on our bulk tonnage targets, you can see the disseminated golden basalt. We also have the pyrites as well, and we also have these very thin veinlet systems you can see on the top right there. These are the three main drivers of mineralization. And what's interesting is we can detect it right away when we drill. And the second thing is we see in parts where we have outcropping mineralization across our project, several examples of exactly the same style, of which we believe some of these could be potential deposits like Taurus. So it's a really, really targeted rich environment, and it's really good to know and understand what success looks like in this district so we can replicate it across our land package as well. So just to give you a bit of a sense of the work we have been doing for the past 16 months. So this is a bit of a summary at drilling in and around the Taurus deposit in 2022. So 2022, we drilled 70 drill holes, 23,000 meters. Obviously, that's not included in the current resource. You can see in pink the footprint of that resource, and in green and with the traces, the location of the drill hole. So we've been significantly stepping out to the south, a lot of significant step outs to the east around that Taurus east mineralization surface. Quite a bit of drilling a little bit further to the southeast of the Taurus deposit around Wings Canyon. We've been hitting mineralization consistently and continuously there, as well as step outs here to the south and to the north, as well as basically infill drill holes in the middle of the footprint of the deposit into those gaps that I was mentioning, where there's some gaps in drilling for which we also intercept mineralization within that footprint and as well below the pit constrained resource. So an overall success so far. You can see some of the numbers here. You can find these numbers on a corporate presentation, and I can let you read that at your leisure. Other than the drilling we've done in and around the Taurus deposit, there's also quite a bit of drilling we've done last year at Cassiar South, where we have the past-producing high-grade veins. Again, very successful. There, what we're looking to do is continue to extend the known veins. Most of them are open along strike and down dips. We've been extending them very successfully, while at the same time try to tag potential blind vein discoveries, parallel and stacked vein discoveries there. So we have a lot of room for those. In fact, you can see some of those highlights from the 22 results. You can see on this map here, just the space between the main mine and CUSAC, there's a 2-kilometer gap. And we know that by the historical production, periodicity suggests every 400 to 600 meters, there's a potential for a new parallel vein system. And each of these vein systems can host up to 150,000 ounces. So it really doesn't take much to add a lot of ounces that are very high grade. You can also see the historical table there of production on the bottom left. 315,000 ounces of production coming from several vein systems. You can see the ounces in the grades. These are very, very high grade ounces with a lot of room to continue to expand. So there's something we're going to be keeping an eye on and should be keeping an eye on as we release results into the future. A good example of that is the Bain mine system. You can see this schematic here. You can see some of the first time we drilled in 2021, we hit 4.8 meters at 35 grams per ton. 6.4 meters at 12.6 grams per ton. Last year, we also intercepted 2.16 meters at 32.95 grams per ton. Very nice widths, very nice grades. And what's exciting here as well is that historical workings have been driven in as recently there as 2010. So in 2010, they drove the historical workings up to 50 meters away from the underground high-grade vein at the vein area. So that's a very, very exciting, and that really goes to highlight the potential of the high-grade material, especially in the near-term development potential, which we do have here as well, which is quite exciting. So I was mentioning some of these outside targets in the presentation. So as I was mentioning, we're looking to continue to expand Taurus. We don't know how big Taurus is going to get. It's wide open laterally and at depth, so we don't know how big it's going to get. 2 million ounces, 3 million ounces, more. We don't know. But what we can actually see is that in and around Taurus, in some outcropping areas, we have mineralization styles that are very, very similar to Taurus. A good example is Snow Creek. You can Snow Creek here. The picture on the bottom right, you can see a geo there for scale. You see exactly the same style of quartz veining, pyrites, and iron carbonate, silica, and sericite. Again, exactly the same characteristics as Taurus, and it's actually a long strike from Taurus to 2-3 kilometers to the northeast of Taurus. So it outcrops again in the alpine when the tree cover disappears, and there's overburning in between. So there's actually a potential that Snow Creek is not only a similar target to Taurus, but actually it might even connect. Similar stories with New Coast. New Coast, you can see the picture there in the middle on the bottom. Quartz veins right at surface. This is 2 kilometers south of Taurus. We also have Lucky there, 3 to 4 kilometers to the northwest of Taurus. A kilometer area that basically hosts very subcropping veins. You can see also geo there for reference. It's up in the alpine in very high grade grab samples, 300 grams per ton, 150 grams per ton. So it's a very, very exciting target as well. And again, the dream here is that, the goal here is actually to prove some of these targets to be potentially satellite deposits similar to Taurus as we increase Taurus. And eventually, what we would really like to see is that these systems might connect with Taurus, in which case this is truly a monster. But we have a lot of work ahead of us and a lot of drilling ahead of us to prove that up. But there's certainly that potential, which is extremely exciting to think about. So just moving now on to a little bit to the work program this year. So we've set up for a program that is up to 20,000 meters this year. The allocation of the drilling we've for this year, we've allocated 50% of the drilling towards Taurus area to continue to step out laterally and at depth as well. We just put out 3 weeks ago the first batch of drill results, 8 drill holes. They all intercepted mineralization. We're allocating another 25% of the drilling to the outlying targets like New Coast, like Lucky. We're also been drilling at the Taurus East and Wings Canyon area. And we're also allocating 25% of the drilling to the Cassiar South high-grade veins, where most of the historical production has come from. We've also been doing some field work, some mapping, sampling, IP, soil sampling as well. And we're also advancing geological domaining and petrological and petrographic work, which I'll go into some detail. So just to give you a sense, so like we're around just over 16,000 meters, roughly 50 drill holes for this year, following a 23,000 meter drill campaign last year with 70 drill holes. So you can see the location here. The map on the left is the Taurus area, so you can see the resource there in pink. We have quite a bit of step outs to the south and some infill drill holes in the middle of Taurus, a couple of drill holes at Lucky, several drill holes at Wings Canyon, as well as the Taurus East area, and as well as 6 drill holes at New Coast, which is quite exciting. At the Cassiar South, we also drilled the main mine area and the Bain mine area, looking for extensions of the known mineralization along strike and down depth. So there's a lot of room for continue to expand mineralization as well as for potential new discoveries in this truly exciting system. But just in terms of field work, other than the drilling, we've been doing some work to further advance and refine our targeting and better evaluate the true potential of our property, because we're still figuring out what's the true potential, because it's the more we dig, the more excited we get. So you can see in the middle of the map on the right, the pink area, which is the Taurus deposit area. So that's a 1 square kilometer area. We've done surface sampling, like a soil survey grid of approximately 3 square kilometers. That's three times the size of Taurus, roughly, from the east of Taurus all the way to the Snow Creek area. Which is one of our exciting outcropping targets. Just on the downstream from Snow Creek, you actually see some placer operations. So there's obviously quite a bit of that's quite an exciting indication in terms of prospectivity there. So those results are still pending. We just completed that work in the beginning of September. The white polygon that you see, which is a little bit, covering Taurus and that surface sampling work, it's the IP survey. So historically in the 80s, the previous operator has done some IP that highlighted 88 Hill, which is at the heart of the Taurus deposit. So we thought it would be extremely helpful to do some IP in a much larger area. So this is now a 15 line kilometer IP survey in this polarization. That is roughly a 10 square kilometer area that covers Taurus and a lot of outlying targets. So that might highlight potentially the edges of the Taurus system. Hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully it keeps going, but it will probably give us a lot of good indications into potentially the limits of the Taurus system or the lack of thereof, or potentially some outlying targets that believe are exciting. Other than that, we also did a mapping exercise. So we mapped the 30 square kilometer area, which is a shaded area here, just north of Highway 37. And again, kind of looking for outcrop and refining some targets. And this is, again, 30 square kilometers out of 590 square kilometer land package. So there's a lot of work ahead of us. There's a lot of potential here, and we're really excited to see the results of these this field program that includes the surface sampling, the IP, as well as the mapping. So and all of these completed just in the beginning of September. So do stay tuned for results on that. Other than that, in terms of catalysts, so we've obviously stopped releasing the results from last year's program in Q2. We've been doing some geological domain and geochemical work at Taurus. We initiated in late Q2 the exploration program for this year that we're just wrapping up. We just 3 weeks ago released the first batch of drill results, and we'll be steadying releasing news flow for the next few weeks and months. So we'll probably get results by December, latest January. So labs are starting to come, quite fast in terms of results. So do stay tuned for that. In the meantime, at the end of Q1, we might be looking at the resource updates potentially, and obviously, as every year, we're going to be looking to get back to our camp in Q2 to start a new exploration campaign in 2024 to pick up on what I expect to be and hope to be great results from this year's drill campaign. So just to recap, Cassiar Gold, we have a great company led by a team of seriously successful people that know what success looks like. We have really great infrastructure whose replacement value is worth multiple times our market cap. We have quite a decent existing resource of 1.4 million ounces with a lot of room to grow. We've been expanding that quite successfully with a lot of room for more potential deposits, and we have the social license to operate and to do so with a commitment to do so in an environmentally responsible manner. Last but not least, as I mentioned, we're very attractively valued, and our goal is to eventually sell this to a major for the right price at the right time, which is not now. But having said that, with the infrastructure where we have, the permits that we have, and the work we've been able to deliver over the past few years, I think there's also the potential for a near-term development opportunity, bootstrapping what we have, using the mill, using the permits, using the infrastructure, and that's something that investors should also be looking at as well. So with that, I'll just stop there for a second and see if there's some room for Q&A. There we go. So I have a question here. Next resource update, when the next resource update, and we expect to have a PEA. So we have a potential resource update in Q1 of next year. Well, there's some discussions on economic studies. We're still figuring out exactly what we have, and we'll be updating the market as we go along on that front. Let me see another question here. So are Cassiar and Sheep Creek both greenfield projects? No, absolutely not. They're both brownfield. They're both seeing significant past production. I think the combined production of these districts together, it's over 1 million ounces, and probably close to, I think just over 15 grams per ton. So they're very, very high grade. Obviously, different veins have different vein systems have different grades, but that's kind of the average from these systems. So we're very, very lucky to have two brownfield projects because, as they say, the best place to find a new mine is on the shadow of the head frame of an old mine, and we do have a lot of old mines in our project with a lot of room to grow. So I have a question here. If I have a projected all-in sustaining cost for the Cassiar projects, we don't have at the moment, but I think it's obviously when we have in the future economic studies, we'll be able to release that. But in the meantime, I think it's worthwhile looking at similar projects in similar jurisdictions with similar grade and in similar geometric settings and at surface, and that could give you a bit of approximation on what could be potentially these costs. Obviously, that's very different between the bulk tonnage and the high grade, but yeah, that allows us to see some of that. I see that we're just a few minutes past the time. Do we have more time or? Okay. All right. I'm being asked to wrap up here. So again, I just wanted to thank everyone for your questions. I wanted to thank also everyone for attending this presentation, whether you're watching it now live or later in the future. And just to recap, I think Cassiar Gold is truly a very, very exciting opportunity. In my opinion, this is extremely undervalued. We have a wealth of infrastructure in our project because we're past producing. Just the replacement value of this infrastructure alone is worth multiple times our market cap. We have a team of seriously successful people that have hundreds of years of collective experience in the mining space. They know what success looks like. They wouldn't be involved in this project if they didn't believe as much as I do in the future success of this project. We have a lot of exploration potential. We've been hitting continuously and consistently mineralization since we took over the project. We've been growing it. We have the social license to operate, and we are committed to developing in an environmentally responsible manner. And then again, the market cap alone is extremely low. This is extremely attractive. I know the sector has been suffering. It's not just us, but this is a really compelling opportunity. So I invite everyone to have a deeper look on what we have, and I invite anyone that wants to know more to connect with me. I'm happy to take you over the opportunity. And once again,